In this podcast, John Busby from Centerfield talks about shaping tomorrow's digital marketing with today's data. So stay tuned. Welcome everyone to Future of Data podcast. Today we have with us John Busby, and he serves as Centerfield's Chief Analytics Officer. A seasoned digital marketing executive, John leads the company's data science, analytics, and insights team. Prior to joining Centerfield, John was head of analytics for Amazon's grocery delivery service and responsible for business intelligence, data science, and automated reporting. Prior to Amazon, John was Senior Vice President of Analytics and Marketing at Merchex. John began his career in product management for InfoSpace, GoToNet, IQChart. He holds Bachelor of Science from Northwestern University. Outside of work, John coaches youth hockey and enjoys sports, poker, and hanging out with his wife and two kids. With that, John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Vishal. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the introduction.
Yeah, interesting. So, why don't you walk us through your journey? I think what I found fascinating about your profile is definitely you did some work with marketing, went into sort of world's largest retailer, and then in your journey today. So, if you can walk us through what brought you to analytics.
Yeah, I've thought about that recently, and actually I think what brought me to analytics really started out super early in my career, and maybe even before my career started. In high school and college, I participated in an activity called policy debate. And policy debate is this research-driven competition where two sides, an affirmative and a negative, debate on a topic. You know, the topic might be, should we have stricter gun laws, or should we have stricter environmental policies? Those sorts of things, and you debate the merits of a specific example of that question. And so I think what I learned from that is how to research and how to think through complex problems. But then, more importantly, for a business context, learning how to present that data, present that research to a judge who would ultimately decide whether or not my team won or the other team won. And so I remember sort of thinking in high school and college, like if I could do this when I grew up, like that's kind of what I'm shooting for. And many of my colleagues in debate decided to pursue a career in law, because I think in law you can do a lot of that stuff. And I felt like I wanted to pursue a career in business. So it really started from that. And then my first job out of college was at a startup, and there were just four of us, and the startup was a subscription-based product serving individual investors, and it was individual investors that traded stocks. This was like a technical stock charting application, and I thought to myself, wow, we're serving people who look at math and look at data and look at stock charting patterns, and they use that to make a living. Wow, that's really cool. And I didn't do that myself. I didn't use the product, but I found that really fascinating. So I think even like in the early seeds of my life and my career, I was thinking about how data and analysis, you could sort of make money by thinking through those things. That's really how my journey started, I would say.
Interesting. And what do you do in Centerfield? First, what is Centerfield? If you can walk us through our listeners and viewers.
Yeah. So Centerfield's a B2B company. We have nearly 1,000 employees, and we serve our clients are companies in the telecom and media space. So you can think of like a wireless company or a cable company, and we do what I would call end-to-end customer acquisition. So what that means is we do marketing on behalf of our clients, and then we don't pass the lead or the phone call directly to the client. We actually close the business ourselves. So either on the phone, we operate large call centers, or through an online kind of like landing page and buy flow. And we're super efficient at that. And so that's why our customers love us. And our efficiency is really driven from two areas. One area is we've hired great people who understand marketing and understand how to run a call center. But the second way that we drive efficiency is through data and understanding our data. So we connect customers all the way through from initially interacting with an advertisement all the way through to a sale. By understanding all of those touch points and what makes a customer excited to buy, we're really good at that.
Interesting. And what is your role in Centerfield? Like, what's your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, my title, Chief Analytics Officer. I'm responsible for analytics, insights, and data science. So my team's really trying to uncover new business opportunities for us by diving deep into our data, and then we're also developing applications or models that we can actually use in practice to improve our business. And then I'd say the final thing that I think about is developing new KPIs or metrics upon which we should measure our business.
Interesting. And I think one thing that I found exciting about your background is and currently in Centerfield's line of business, so you serve telco and media. And I think if you look at say marketing or creating an end-to-end solution, both of these companies see customers coming in from all different angles. They could be on call, they could be on a website, they could be on mobile app, they could be. So when you're designing or you're creating an analytics or data science practice for something like that, where customer could be checking you out from any platform out there, like how do you go about designing a system that actually serves a wide array of channels where customer could come and sort of create a data-driven approach in recommending?
Yeah, I think it can be sometimes hard to predict exactly how a customer wants to interact with your business. And I think one of the mistakes that companies have made historically when let's say focusing on digital marketing is only giving the customer the option to sign up online, when in certain cases the customer might actually want to make a phone call, or might want to come into a store, or might want to chat with someone. And so I think what the best companies are doing are giving customers every option, and then based on how customers are interacting with that site or with that experience, emphasizing the things that most customers want to do. And then in order to make a business like ours work, or really to make any marketing campaign work, these days you need to measure every interaction. So the web stuff's easier because we have cookies, but when it comes to a phone call or a chat or an in-store visit, like those are the things that are trickier to track. And but if customers can do it either in a deterministic way, or they can sort of predict that, and they do it a really good job, they can be very, very successful.
Interesting. And can you walk us through your experience dealing with Amazon's grocery division? Like, what was analytics there look like? What we can learn from that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is that Amazon is a super data-driven and quantitative culture, and so having a data job or an analytics job at Amazon is awesome, because you're talking to people who want to make decisions based on what you find. And the grocery division was a really cool division to be a part of, because like grocery purchases let me actually take a step back. consumers spend more on groceries and food
Hmm.
than like everything else that Amazon or Walmart sells, like put together.
Hmm.
I guess Walmart sells groceries, but I mean, just mean they're non-grocery business. And it's also this, so it's like the biggest category we have in the world, and it's also the category that customers buy online the least. And so it's in this really cool space where we're trying to understand how customers want to buy groceries and how they want groceries delivered. Um, that part was really cool. And I think what we were trying to understand were questions like customer lifetime value, um, customer repeat behavior, and then all the types of things associated with retail, like price, inventory, that sort of thing.
Interesting. And what does a typical data science practice looks like? So, in your current role, how do you create a data science practice for, say, in marketing agencies serving these clients? Like, what is a typical team structure, and how do you sort of, if you can walk us through that?
Yeah, there are tons of different team structures just in general.
Mm,
Like Amazon, for instance, has some central teams. They have some teams in engineering. They have teams like mine, which were insights teams, more embedded in under business leaders. And I don't think there's a single way of organizing a data science team that's the right way. I think that the roles that I get really excited about are are insights driven,
mm,
meaning we have to figure out how our customers behave, or how the system behaves, um, or how X behaves. There's this thing that we don't understand about our customers. Let's use data to figure that out, and then once we've figured that out, let's develop a model, or develop software, or develop a system to take advantage of what we've learned to help drive more revenue. And maybe to get back to your question about how data science teams are organized, um, I like to have a sort of a mix of skill sets,
mm,
and those skill sets um, include analysts who are typically great at descriptive analysis, data scientists who are typically great at statistical analysis,
mm,
and then someone that you might call like a business intelligence engineer or a data engineer, people that are great at data engineering and then also automated reporting. I really like and favor teams that have all of those skill sets, because I think you can do anything with the organization when you have those skill sets. And those don't necessarily have to be four different people, or four different groups of people. You just need to make sure you have all of those skill sets. And I found that a single title doesn't tend to solve for all of those things.
interesting. And I think, and you talked about creating an insights driven organization. So when
Yeah,
you talk about that, I think it presumes some certain kind of maturity when it comes to handling data and getting some
right.
analytics done and all that, right? So when you join a company, how do you ensure that we are ready for an insights driven organization? Like, how do you sort of, what are some of the steps you can walk us through that we as a leader could sort of learn from you to ensure that we're getting there?
Yeah, that's tough. Like if you're on the job market, let's say, and
Mm,
you're trying to determine whether a company is sort of ready for data science and insights. I think it's asking the business and technical stakeholders that you're interviewing with, like, to give you a
mm,
lot of details about the data that they have,
mhm,
and the KPIs that they use, um, and sort of the questions that are unanswered and the ones they need solving. And if if you are given really good answers to those things, then I would say they're ready for you. And that may be vague, but I think that in my experiences, if I was to evaluate a job opportunity, or when I did with Centerfield or Amazon, it
mm,
was as much as they were interviewing me, I was interviewing them to make sure that that they were sort of ready and receptive to insights. And fortunately for me, I've been lucky to work with great companies that are.
Interesting. And from your definition, like what makes an analyst or data scientist successful today in today's time? Like who would you call as a good talent in data science space?
Yeah, I think that great data scientists and great analysts, first and foremost, are good at talking to business stakeholders. So maybe that's not the answer that you are expecting, but so much of the big data science problems are actually getting a project launched that makes a big impact on the business is in the discovery process. Like, what are we trying to solve for? What data do we have? What data is messy? And do I understand how all the data is calculated? And really connecting with a business stakeholder that's like your sponsor for the project. I mean, even if you're reporting up through, let's say, a data analytics leader, it's making sure that anyone that joins the team is comfortable talking with that sponsor. So that's one. The second thing I would say is sort of creativity and passion for solving problems. That I think is a super important trait. And like, when I'm looking for someone to hire, I need to be able to have a great conversation with them and get really deep on a problem right away. That tells me that individual can talk to business stakeholders and sort of think on the fly about problems with others, which I think is really important. And there are tons of other qualities that make up great data scientists, but those are just two that come to mind for me.
Interesting. And if with your chief analytics officer hat for a company like Centerfield, dealing with, say, telco clients, and I think one interesting thing that I find with a system like company like yours is, so when I talk to any my data science colleagues at an enterprise who are dealing with customers directly, so I always hear about the concern that, hey, data cannot tell us all the time some of the non-captured details which are critical for a decision making. Like, so if I bought a phone, showing it to my friends and then capturing their facial responses, right? And then using that cue to figuring out whether I want that phone or not. And they always sort of talk about that, hey, every product has their own nuances that are not, that we don't capture properly. Now, when you look at something like Centerfield, where sort of you are empowering someone else's ecosystem, how difficult of a challenge it is that you feel as an analytics officer, that not understanding the product or deep enough or actually not going into the mindset of the designer would pose a challenge in correctly identifying the customer behavior, or am I even saying things correctly here?
No, I think I understand where you're going with the question, and it's super important to us at Centerfield to have a deep understanding of the products that we're selling. Like, let's imagine that we're selling a wireless phone, or the new iPhone comes out, and one of our clients sells that iPhone. And let's say that a customer is actually calling us as opposed to signing up online. There's a really significant amount of product training that we do to make sure that we understand the products that we're selling in and out. Like, that's a super important part of any marketing business, and also connecting with your clients to understand what their goals and objectives are. And I think it is as an analytics officer, I think my role is to collect as much data as I possibly
Mm.
can, which we can either use to maximize our clients' objectives, or actually give that data back to the customers.
Mm.
Um, we do some really interesting things at Centerfield, collecting data that customers give us about what they're interested in, and we use that to actually make future decisions about how we sell on behalf of clients. And that's really where I think an analytics or data science officer or team can come in handy. And that goes back to an insights driven culture
Mm.
where where we're just constantly asking us what can we learn, and providing that information back to the business team or directly to the client.
Interesting. And another fascinating trend that we hear a lot from sort of our end on the data spectrum is this emergence of artificial AI in business processes and in helping understanding customer behavior better, and
Right.
sort of relieving pressure on, say, all the high end touch points, whether it's a customer call center, whether it's, what are some of the things that you are seeing, like, what from your vantage point, what is AI looks like in your field? Like, how is AI disrupting the way you understand a customer and sort of you deliver or serve them? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. A lot of the um, and maybe I can just sort of step back for a second and look at a lot of how the media covers AI or thinks about AI.
Mm.
And it's like AI is like this battle of humans versus robots, and AI is just going to mean that humans don't have jobs and robots have all the jobs, and all of that stuff. I think in a lot of the applications where I've seen AI work, or I've invested in AI either at Amazon or at Centerfield, it's about using data or using machine learning to improve the productivity of your workforce,
Mm.
and actually make our colleagues' jobs better and more satisfying. This for example, we're trying to understand how to acquire and retain the best call
Mm.
center agents we possibly can. And we also believe that the happier that our colleagues and employees at the call center are, the more likely they are to stay with us, the more likely they are to be productive, and the more likely they are to drive more sales and make more money for themselves. We see
Mm.
this sort of virtuous cycle, and so a lot of what we are investing in is how to improve agent or employee satisfaction. In addition to that, um, in the call center space, like AI can be used to improve all of these outdated ways of organizing or operating.
Mm.
For example, let's say that you call an airline, um, or you really call any company, and you're sort of the fifth person in line.
Mm.
You're the sort of the fifth person on hold. Well, generally speaking, you're going to be answered fifth.
Mm.
Well, maybe you're a special customer in some way, or we know something about you that it's really important that we answer your call first. That's really interesting. And then in addition to that, let's imagine that there's a certain type of agent that you'd really connect with, or that's really good at selling the type of product that we predict you're going to buy. Um, and let's also imagine that we're really good at predicting when these calls or when this traffic is going to come in. We
Mm.
make sure that as a call center agent, you're not you're not sitting at work idle,
Mm.
because you can't make any money if you're not answering the phone. So we make sure that you're always on the phone. So we're taking these sort of old school businesses and really revolutionizing them. And whether it's the Amazon warehouse or a call center or really any place where a lot of folks work, I think AI has a ton of potential to do a lot of good.
Interesting. And right now, I think another thing that I hear a lot from at least the retail side of the world is the changing habits of consumers, like so, and the changing the platform of choice for consumers. Now it's Facebook. At some point, it was something else. Now they are also moving into Snapchat and so on and so forth. How bigger of a challenge is that for say a platform like yours, where you have like all these channels and each with varying level of relevance for a particular product? Like, what are some of the opportunities or challenges that you see in sort of in capturing all those consumers across all these channels?
So you're asking about making sense of customer behavior across platforms.
Yeah.
Is that the nature of the question? It's a hard one because you can't always you don't always know that that I'm the same person who went into the store and made a call and was on the web. You can't always be the same person. I think a lot of how we develop insights at Centerfield or at Amazon was through experimentation. So we try to set up an experiment where we subtly sort of shift consumer behavior in some way, and then we learn by looking at our end result KPIs or sales. I don't know if that's too vague or not, but that's sort of where my head goes when you ask that question.
Interesting. And from your vantage point, if you see other customers dealing with their customers or their B2B end-to-end interactions, like what are some of the things that you think or you have seen other folks doing it wrong or not getting it when it comes to understanding the end-to-end consumer behavior to capturing and sort of upselling and selling more leads? Like, what are some of the things that businesses miss out on?
Yeah, I would say that where businesses are missing out is in failing to agree on the KPIs that truly drive our business. For example, like let's say that there's some innovation that an operations team makes. I'm talking about like a retail example, to sort of reduce the cost of packaging. And reducing that cost of packaging saves a little money, which can be passed on to the consumer in some way. So you say to yourself, maybe there's some consumer benefit to this, and there's also some operational benefit for the company. But it's possible that this packaging introduces a higher level of defects in some way. The packaging can break down. And it might be really hard to measure the downstream impact of that change, because you've reduced costs, which you can pass along to the customer as savings, but you've broken customer trust with a higher defect rate, and some of those customers may no longer want to use your service. These are the types of dilemmas I see in every line of business, and it should all come back to what's the ultimate KPI driving your business? Is it today's contribution profit? Is it in increasing? Is it maximizing lifetime value? Is it maximizing subscription costs? And where analytics and data science teams can really help here is by quantifying or proving why the ultimate, or as I call them, the golden KPIs. And then every change you make at a business comes back to how did it influence the golden KPIs?
Interesting. And how important is for you to re-audit or audit those KPIs? I think that's another thing that we hear a lot, at least more often than we want to in transformative time, is how rapidly the market is changing, how rapidly behavior is changing, how rapidly sort of platforms are, and their expectation from consumer is changing. So when you consider that, how important is it for you to re-audit or recalibrate your KPIs?
I'm constantly thinking. I'm constantly thinking about KPIs, and I think it's really important for business leaders to revisit KPIs at least yearly. And I know that as I've established new insights or new research or new data science groups, one of the fundamental things I recognize that the business needs to resolve is which is the most important KPI, because there are always these KPIs. There are always these sub-metrics that are at odds with each other. Operational cost versus lifetime value, marketing cost versus lifetime value. All of those things, they're difficult to measure just with your typical Excel spreadsheet. You need some real analytics muscle to prove those out. But once that's done, it can be super impactful to the business because it makes every conversation about whether something is a good idea or bad idea much easier.
Interesting. And if I am say an executive for say a small company, and I'm trying to establish this insight-driven organization. What would you suggest that how would I go about it? Like what would be the start of to getting that done? Like what would be your say first 5-step be if you face an organization where sort of you want to actually ensure that it's an insight driven organization?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like thinking about a 10-step process or something like that. So the first thing that needs to be done, I would say, before you even hire your data science leader, before your data science leader does anything, is to really come to grips with the areas of the business that you don't understand and the biggest areas of opportunity. And then let's say it's a big opportunity to understand customer satisfaction and what drives customer lifetime value. That's great, because that can focus your data science leader or data science team. And if I was, let's say I was hired to figure that out, and I was thinking about building the team, I think I would actually probably start by hiring someone who's a really exceptional analyst. And they may also be a data scientist too. I'm just saying that someone who's exceptional at pulling data, cleaning data, and very, very quickly developing insights about that data, and is very comfortable writing and presenting research points, research papers or PowerPoints about those insights. And what those insights do is they define the projects that your ultimate data science team will need to execute against, or the areas of opportunity. So, and you can do that with a really nimble team. I think just a handful of analysts or just a single analyst in some cases can produce tons of insights about an organization, and those things all drive the problem spaces where your data science or AI or machine learning projects will be derived from.
Interesting. And what would you advise to a young or wannabe chief analytics officer to do to prepare for this job? Like what all needs to, what all gets in to create a successful chief analytics officer?
Well, I think at the for a chief analytics officer, or really any senior leader, needs to be able to communicate complex data problems or opportunities simply to business operations leaders.
Mm.
It's super natural for an analytics team to discuss the value of experimentation or discuss some very simple statistical concepts which might be used on a testing platform.
Mm.
But those concepts are often very foreign to business leaders, and or something like and even explaining that you're not going to make $100,000 from this. There's a 85% chance you're going to make $100,000 on this. Like even things like that can be problematic for business folks to understand. And so I would say get in as many repetitions as possible
Mm.
to talk with business stakeholders. I would also say try to get your hands dirty in all of the different types of work that's done in a bigger analytics organization. So descriptive analysis, statistical analysis,
Mm.
automated reporting, data engineering, having exposure to all of these things, even if you don't end up doing all of them, or you're not an expert in all of them, you understand how those things work. That's really important part of being a data science or analytics leader.
Interesting. And another sort of thing that we hear a lot from folks is their paranoia about bias, right?
Yeah,
And sort of when they're
yeah.
sort of we hope that they wouldn't be trapped by it. Like, what are some of the things
Yeah.
you would suggest that has helped you stay at least as much bias free as you can?
Um, keep yourself honest by running experiments. I mean,
Mm.
we're going through something very very similar, or kind of that. What I was smiling when you asked that question because because there's a there's a certain thing that I want done in my current job because I believe it's going to work. Um, but but what I really need to do is set up an experiment to prove that it's going to work because I'm, despite all my best intentions and logic and all this stuff, I can't convince others yet. And so it's I think and that's actually it's a great way to hold everybody honest and accountable at work, is setting up great experiments. So
Mm.
that's my answer.
Interesting. And what are some of the fabric of your good best hires? Like, what are some of the qualities that you cherish or at least you appreciate in your hiring process?
Yeah. Well, I'm really fortunate. I love the people that I work with today at Centerfield. They're awesome, and I had a great team at Amazon as well. I think a couple things that I would say. One is like a really high level of curiosity and just
Mm.
loving to solve problems. Like if you're trying to do something like optimizing workforce and or improving call center efficiency, like those as a concept, those problems
Mm.
might not be interesting, but just making something more efficient with data, like just that being your passion and being really curious about how everything interrelates, the best people do that. And I really look for that and treasure that, because those people are going to be highly productive, and they also they love what they do, so they can be future leaders. I'd say the other thing is that is unique about our role, and I guess you could say this about engineering as well, but I feel like analytics is a little bit closer to the business in many cases, or data sciences, is you love working alone and you love working with others.
Mm.
Like I love it when I spend a day interacting with my colleagues at Centerfield about business problems, and then I also love it when I get to spend 2 hours just looking through a bunch of data and trying to make sense of it. And I think that um, if you only like sort of doing the work by yourself,
Hmm.
I think you can still be successful as a data scientist, but you're sort of capped out
Hmm.
as high sort of as how high you can go, because you're really going to get the most bang for your buck out of your career when you like really treasure working with others too.
Interesting. And from your vantage point about this digital marketing landscape, like what are some of the big opportunities available today that you think are not yet being sort of exploited yet? Like what do you think are some of the big areas where if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to get into like these space are ripe for me to indulge in?
Yeah. Um, I was really excited to join Centerfield because Centerfield is all about this end-to-end customer acquisition concept.
Hmm.
I think a lot of marketing is siloed, and I don't mean siloed like is it TV advertising or is it digital advertising. I more mean like how are you evaluating the effectiveness of TV advertising? You're getting a lot of people to view the ad, or you're getting a certain type of person to view the ad,
Hmm.
um, and that's just sort of one part of it. How do you know these people are actually buying, and what are they buying, and how are they buying it, and how is it impacting the entire customer life cycle? Like that's really the part that marketing hasn't figured out yet. Or if you can find out little slices of this, it can transform. Um, it can sort of transform your marketing effectiveness. I kind of this reminds me of an anecdote of a previous company I worked at, Marchex, where Marchex is a call measurement company. It helps companies who um, who drive phone calls from marketing and like where the calls came from, and that's that sort of thing. And one of the things we found out when working with a hotel company is that um, is that people who were calling a hotel instead of signing up online, like a lot of them were asking about like the view out of the hotel room and like the proximity and what was around the hotel,
Hmm.
and other things like the fitness center. And what's interesting about that is you can use that data to um, to inform your future marketing creative.
Hmm.
So your future marketing creative, instead of showing the lobby, it can show the fitness center, or it can show the view of the Eiffel Tower, like because that's why someone wants to choose your hotel. So it's all these like end to end touch points, which I think are the future of marketing and data, and are really impactful.
Interesting. And what would you say is the future of digital marketing? Like from your vantage point, what should we expect to see maybe in 5 years or 10 years from now on that we are not really seeing nowadays?
For data driven marketing, you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, I think it's about connecting online to offline. Like the
Hmm.
first generation of and maybe the first 20 years of digital marketing has been around how can we get really good at getting someone to sign up online. Um, and that's been great because digital marketing's grown a ton.
Hmm.
But the fact is that offline commerce, either in store or over the phone, is still like 80% or 85% of the
Hmm.
dollars that we spend. And so yet we're researching everything online.
Hmm.
So it's I think the future of marketing is in the next 5 years, the winners are going to be really good at understanding how online impacts offline and offline impacts online.
Interesting. Interesting. Now let's spend some time on your journey. Like in
Sure.
if in your journey, if you want to attribute your success to some qualities that has helped you stay what you are, like what would you attribute those, like what are some of those qualities that you attribute your success to? Like what should we learn from some qualities that has really helped you be what you are today?
Um, well, I think one thing is that I would advise everyone is be honest with yourself about what you really love to do. Like I mentioned, really early in my journey in Debater in my first job, like having these
Mm,
insights about myself, about what really made me happy at work, and trying to pursue those things. And so, if you're in a data science or analytics position, um, just ask yourself if you really love doing it. The first part
mm,
of my career was in product management. There's a ton that I liked about product management, but once I shifted to analytics, it was
mm,
like wow, this is this is everything I've ever wanted. So that's number one. And then I would say um, as you start to become a leader, because eventually, if you show promise as an analyst or a data scientist, you're going to have the opportunity to mentor or manage people. Is
mm,
to constantly ask yourself, how can I make my team more productive, and how can I make my team happy? Because as you shift to a leader, it's what your team does that creates success for your organization and for you. And so being totally and utterly focused on having a happy and productive team.
mm.
And that's something that I think about a lot. Um, in terms of in terms of things that are like my habits, if you will, I try to have like daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly goals, um,
Interesting.
because in the if you're always thinking about what you can achieve in a year, you might not be successful today. And the
Mm,
flip side is also true. You can find yourself, spending months or years even doing day to day stuff and not looking at the bigger picture for what you want to accomplish. And so I have daily and weekly goals that I look at every day, and then I have monthly and yearly goals that I think about less frequently. But I really pay attention to look at those, and it helps keep
mm,
me honest and course correct on what I want to do. Um, and the last thing that comes to mind is at work centering everything based on KPIs.
mm,
Like if we have just a simple thing. If you have a KPI around revenue, and like that's the only thing that you really drive around, is every decision that you make um, should be, do I think that this investment in my time is going to contribute to that KPI, or could I better use
mm.
it elsewhere? And it's kind of a focus thing.
Interesting. And one other thing we ask all of our guests to share is some of their favorite read or reads that sort of that they like reading and that they could recommend to our listeners and viewers. Like, do you have any such read to share?
Yeah, I I really like reading books on poker strategy. You mentioned in my interview that I have a few hobbies. I coach youth hockey,
Yeah,
that sort of thing. But I also really love poker, and I think a lot
interesting.
of analysts and data folks like poker because it's this game
Mm,
where you're rooted in math and stats. You have imperfect information, and you have to rely on intuition sometimes. And that's kind of like how life is and how business is. And so I'm really fascinated about that. So if you're interested in learning the game, or even if you already know the game, um, and you're kind of interested in poker strategy, I'd recommend reading the books by Jonathan Little.
mm. Interesting. And what's the name of the book?
What are the names? I think the books are like Secrets of Tournament Poker, and they're
Okay.
sort of marketing-y titles,
Okay.
um, but they're really great introductions to the game and sort of what makes you successful and what to think about, and and whether they're traits like you know uh, uh, aggressiveness
Mm.
or game selection or bankroll, or sort of all the things that make one successful in that game, you can apply to business in really interesting ways.
Interesting, and thank you for sharing that. By the way, so now we're at the last but not the least question for the interview. So if you want something that our listeners and viewers could take away from the conversation, like what would that be? What would be your closing remark for our listeners and viewers?
Well, first of all, I appreciate anyone who has spent the last hour with us. If only I could get my children to pay this much attention, that would that would be great. And thanks for having me. I really loved our conversation. Um, I I don't know. I think maybe I just go back to what I was saying earlier, and that's put yourself in a position to be doing more of what you love at work. And because if you're doing more of what you love at work, you're going to be happier, and you're also going to be more productive. And when you're happier and more productive, you're going to get everything you want from your career. So that's what I would say.
Interesting. With that, thank you so much, John, for again spending a generous amount of time with us, candidly explaining and walking us through the world of digital marketing. And thank you so much on that. And you're always welcome back on the podcast, and love to have you back in the future to share your journey. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Vishal. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on the